Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get on. Mandate. Get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing. Doing a special one-on-one with Tucker Carlson. Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
I enjoy your show very much. I enjoy your book very much. Ship of Fools is the name of the book. How a selfish ruling class is bringing America to the brink of revolution. I listened to the audio version of it, which Tucker voiced himself. Oftentimes, that's not the case. And I'll pay it the ultimate compliment. I normally save the Audible books for long walks with the dog and, trapped in traffic and that kind of stuff. Found myself listening to Ship of Fools at home in my den with the TV available last night. And I said, all right, I never listen to books versus watching TV because I'm intellectually shallow. So I turned on Sports Center, but I turned the sound all the way down. And I sat there with my phone listening to Ship of Fools in my den. I could not turn it off.
Thank you.
If anyone knows Tucker's work from his television show, his nightly television show, weeknights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, it's 5 o'clock out here on Fox, you'll hear many of the same thoughts. This is just strung together in a very full-course meal. I know you're from out here originally, but I don't know a lot about your story. So I feel like before we get into politics and matters that matters at hand, why don't we talk about you and where you started?
Well, that's where my politics come from. I mean, I'm from Southern California. I was born in San Francisco, but moved to L.A., to Studio City, not far from here. And then...
where did you live in Studio City, just on a personal note?
Laurel Terrace.
I grew up right up in there, too.
Yeah.
Laurel Terrace.
Laurel Terrace. So it's kind of up Laurel Canyon.
Yeah, Hebrew Heights, as it's now known. Yes, that's where all the Jewish kids, when I went to North Hollywood High, they lived up in Hebrew Heights.
The Eagles lived on our street. I remember that, or some of the... This was in the 70s.
And they would call it the Donnas, because they had the Donna Pagitas and the Donna Dolores, all the Donna streets up there. Well, that'll bring me back to an interesting subject in a moment, but keep going. So you grew up in Studio City.
Yeah, and then my parents got divorced, which was the law then, as you remember.
Sure, in the 70s.
My mom became an artist, also required, and so I moved with my dad and my brother down to San Diego.
How old were you?
I was in first grade.
So you're young.
Yep. And my father was in the news business. He worked at Channel 7 here as an anchor in L.A., Eyewitness News.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to work for CBS in San Diego, and so I grew up there. But the point is, I'm from California. My family's from California. They're very proud of being from California. They never stopped talking about the state and how it was sort of the highest level of awesomeness. And if you didn't live here, you were unfortunate. And everything about California is better than every other place, from our schools to our infrastructure to our people, best looking women, best food. Like, everything about California was the best. I mean, that I marinated in that. And you probably did too if you grew up here. Like, this was the greatest place. And then I left and I went to school on the East Coast and I moved to Washington. I got caught up in that and journalism. But I would come back to California, obviously, a lot. And I watched the state change just profoundly, and not just politically. In fact, that was the least interesting change that I watched. I saw it change demographically, but mostly I saw it change economically. And it became a place where normal people just couldn't really thrive. And the whole point of California was, this is where, everyone from the Midwest who had some ambition and wanted a better life and better weather, but really wanted to kind of become a new person, moved. So it was a really promising place. And I watched it become a place where if you weren't like legitimately rich, you actually kind of couldn't live here unless you were legitimately poor, in which case you could. And so what about everybody else? And so I go to places like, Boise or Scottsdale or Jackson or, all the kind of Portland, contiguous or near contiguous cities in the American West, and they're filled with Californians.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wait, this is an inversion of what I grew up with, what I expected. Like, they're all leaving. I mean, a lot of people I know stay because it's such a great place and they're so insulated from the problems. But like, if you're not making real money and you have children, like, you have to leave. And that's Latin America. It's not Latin America demographically. It's not a racial observation. That's the Latin American economy. That's Latin American culture, where a small number of, caudillos run everything and everyone else is a peasant. There's no middle class. I hate that.
I do as well, and I've been here the entire time and experienced it. And, little things like I grew up in North Hollywood, but my mom's house was redubbed Valley Village at a certain point because North Hollywood got so bad and the real estate was so low because of the crime and the gangs and the pollution and everything else that people, if you went to the post office, it would still say North Hollywood. But the folks that lived in a slightly nicer part of North Hollywood whose property values were going down the toilet rebranded themselves as Valley Village. And there's all these little enclaves around, the difference between having a house in Sherman Oaks, California, and having a house in Van Nuys, California, is 40%, maybe 60% in terms of the value of your home. So the people who are sort of on the border, whose homes were in Van Nuys, would have to give themselves some sort of euphemistic title like Valley Gardens or something, not to be lumped in with Van Nuys, even though technically they're still in Van Nuys and that's what it says on the deed. But when you have to start renaming little pockets of the valley, and as I've always said, this city, the second the barbed wire started going up around the freeway signs, we should have stopped and found a mirror and said,
exactly.
What the hell is going on? Hold on a second. We're putting barbed wire. We live in a city where we must put barbed wire around freeway signs. What is going wrong? This is basically the equivalent to the junkie father who's out of control on pain meds, taking his 7-year-old's piggy bank, smashing it on the chest of drawers, and then looking up and seeing himself in the mirror and going, what have I become? And a tear rolling down. And the next thing you know, he's at a place in Malibu and there's somebody with a clipboard and they fully understand. When we started putting barbed wire over freeway signs, we should have went, wait a minute, what's happened?
But so what you're describing is self-awareness, which is the thing in least available supply among the people making the decisions. Like, they know nothing about them, so they cannot see themselves clearly at all. And it's like, I don't mind when people make mistakes because, I do, because all people do. What I mind, what enrages me, is when people refuse to concede that they made a mistake, refuse to learn from it, and then displace the responsibility for that mistake on the people affected by it. So in other words, it's like, I screwed this up. We had a great place. I wrecked it for my own comfort and enrichment, but it's your fault.
Right. I have so much to get into you about your book, Ship of Fools. So much resonated with me. First, I just want to tell you this half of the show brought to you by Quicken Loans. You can go to rocketmortgage.com for that. Simply Safe as well. Go to simplysafe.com/Adam. Castrol Edge Titanium Strong for maximum engine performance. Some quick, just sort of personal thoughts on Tucker Carlson. I understand we live in a world where there's the left and there's the right and there's Rachel Maddow and there's Sean Hannity and everyone needs to be divided. And it's essentially this political parade and it's heading down Main Street. And we're saying to everyone who's standing in the street, either stand on the right side or stand on the left side of the street. And there's certain people that go, I don't really agree wholly with the right or wholly with the left. And they go, pick a side and move because we're coming down the street. There is no meandering in the middle. I think Tucker gets thrown into the right side of Main Street. He oftentimes has problems with the Republicans. He oftentimes has problems with Washington in general. He oftentimes has problems with Trump. And if you take a look at most and many of his stances, they're mostly common sense, working folk oriented and less sort of partisan reactionary party line.
Well, I don't think the Republicans represent me very well. I mean, I've been sort of forced to vote for them because I don't know what else to do at this stage. I don't want to. But I don't think the divide is between the parties, and I actually don't think it's even ideological at this point. It's temperamental and economic. So the two divisions are, if you see someone you disagree with in a restaurant who voted for something you don't like, do you feel a moral obligation to scream at him until he leaves? If you don't, probably on my side. And are you richer than you were after the financial collapse of 2008? I mean, that's kind of the core division. And where I live in D.C., I mean, it really is like a giant Bel Air, to put it in Southern California terms. Like, you're there, it's beautiful, it's nice, there's full employment, but there's also no sense life exists beyond its boundaries at all, because our city is totally immune to economic fluctuation because our economy is based on the federal budget, which expands. Like, that's all it does. So if you're in D.C., you feel like, well, the country's like doing great. And then you drive from D.C. to like Pittsburgh, pick a city, take a 4-hour drive in any direction, and you pass through towns of like 10,000 people with no car dealership because it went out of business, where like the majority of grown men do not have full-time jobs, where 30% of them are daily taking some kind of painkiller on disability. It's like, it's actually a disaster. It's like free fall culturally. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I'm not sure I understand. I'm not an intellectual. I'm a talk show host. So I don't fully understand everything that's going on, but I know disaster when I see it. And no one seems to even acknowledge it. It's like, what? What's what you were saying before we went on the air? You said take a camera crew up and drive around parts of the valley that, like, I grew up knowing, right? Because I'm from here. And I think of them as sort of stable, normal, middle-class places. Multiracial, by the way. It's not a race thing. It's just like normal people live there. And now they're covered in graffiti and filth and gangs. People don't understand the extent to which huge parts of the country have slipped into something really ugly in third world. They don't even know. And that is what drives me freaking crazy.
Well, for me, I'm an atheist and I don't have much education, formal education. And, I kind of tell people, well, I'm allowed to weigh in with my opinions because I've never really read anyone else's opinions. My thoughts are not polluted with other people's ideas. It sounds somewhere between, it sounds pompous and, it sounds arrogant, pompous, and ill-informed simultaneously. But I really do mean that I was allowed to sit around and form my own thoughts. I didn't get indoctrinated into any side. I'm not a fan of anyone's literature. I did not hear this professor lecture on this subject endlessly. I have no education. I went to North Hollywood High. I was a ceramics major. I didn't take algebra. I never took the SATs. I was warehouse. I never learned to read or write. I got out of that. I worked carpet cleaning. I worked construction. There was no indoctrination. I was free just to sit and watch.
Yes.
And absorb and observe. But I didn't, I'm not coming at it from any angle because I have no alma mater. I have no team to represent.
So you really are the proverbial guy from Mars who just showed up and assessed it on its own terms.
Well, in a way, like when you say like, well, what if a guy just came down from outer space? Yeah. What would he think? Yes, I come from a family that imparted nothing. We didn't put an emphasis on anything. We were not churchgoers. We were not Jehovah's Witnesses. There was no indoctrination, anything. If anything, there was probably a little left-leaning kind of 70s SoCal hippie vibe that I kind of quickly sussed out as mostly bullshit. Well, sorry, not mostly bullshit, all bullshit. Like everything my mom predicted, none of it ever came true.
I lived like that too. It's so funny.
And it's funny. I always think about it, like all the warnings about sitting too close to the TV set and the microwaves and white bread killing you and all the things that all the pollution, all the everything, all the doom and gloom and how we're going to be living underground by the year 2000 and blah, blah, blah. They got it all wrong. And the one thing they missed was the sun being harmful. They would tell us
exactly. People use tinfoil in the backyard.
It was like so they could tan their jowls. It was the underside of the jowl.
Yes.
Like it was like my mom was like, don't use a pillow, it'll screw up your spine. But all summer long, shirt off, cut off jeans, out in the front yard.
Of course.
For 11 hours running through the sprinklers. There was no put on a T-shirt or get some pab on your shoulders. Now, I know why, as I think about it. The man didn't make the sun. The sun was the sun's on our side. Yes. In other words, like, they're not Procter and Gamble. They're not making white bread and white flour, and white rice and white this and white. Everything was white. Like, it couldn't be anything white. Brown rice,
Of course.
Brown sugar, no problem. White sugar, so it was that. And the sun, no problem. So the one thing that turned out to be harmful was the sun. And that's the one thing they never brought up. No one ever said.
That is so funny. I mean, I really grew up in the same world you did, because that's exactly right. And it was a world governed by its neuroses primarily. Like, they were afraid. I had a cousin run away from home and live with us when I was a kid. She lived in Truckee, California, up near Tahoe, and she got in a fight with parents, 16, moved in with us. And the first thing she did, whenever she'd come to breakfast, she'd duck under the microwave. And we're like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, it's emitting rays that are going to distort my DNA."
Right.
But she had all kinds of other, like, terrible habits that were never acknowledged because they were considered fine.
Yeah, so when a lot of this stuff is, what's old is new again, where a lot of this stuff is cropping up again, I lived through it the first time.
Me too.
I've realized just how wrong everyone was the first time. Who was your governor
then?
Brown, probably.
Right. That's the funniest part. He's
back too. Right. It's insane. Chris, you can find out when Brown governed. It certainly was the governor in like 75 and now back again. So it is weird, this full cycle sort of revisiting the past. And we're, Governor Moonbeam is right back with us again. So I had a family that had no preconceived notions of anything. Nobody ever pulled me aside and said, "Don't trust Jews or blacks." Nobody ever said, "Focus on this, and this is how you make your bones," or the people with the money. I never had any discussion. There was literally no discussion. I was just free range. And we didn't have any money, and it's also, he was 75 to 83, perfect, and now 2011 to present. I did catch little glimpses. My mom was on welfare and food stamps and hated the government. And I started sort of sussing out the folks that were relying on the government actually hated the government. We lived in a house that was my grandmother's second house that she was supposed to rent out, but my mom was sort of a mess. So we got to flop there. And it started to dawn on me that the people my mother hates the most are her mom, who provide a house,
exactly,
and the government, who provide the cheese.
Yeah.
So there's two people on this planet, or two entities, that are actually keeping us alive, and those are the only two people you hate.
Of course.
She didn't hate Menachem Begin. I didn't hear any ill words to any Ayatollahs or anybody that. She hated her mom and the government. And I was sort of 9, kind of going, "Aren't these the two people that are kind of keeping us afloat over here? Why so much rage against the two entities?"
That's always the way it is.
Of course, it can't. I also learned it can go no other way.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You hate the people you're dependent upon and the people you wrong. If you sin against people, you hate them, which is one of the reasons everyone in Washington hates, like, working class white men whose salaries on average have declined 11% over 30 years. Can you imagine that? Right. They're the people whose life expectancy is shrinking, and yet they've got all the privilege. We hate them. They're the problem. Really?
Well, I have yelled on my podcast before, and I'm sure it wouldn't go over very well in some circles in Hollywood, but they go, white men, they're responsible for slavery, they're responsible for all atrocities. And I kind of go, yeah, but we're also responsible for everything. So it's sort of unfair. The Golden Gate Bridge, that is white man's work as well. So it's like, I get it. If you're out there doing everything, you're going to have a couple of misfires.
It's so weird, since you grew up in this, again, the same world I did. Like, the one thing you were not allowed to do, as value-free and judgment-free as 1979 Southern California was, you were not allowed to attack groups of people on the basis of their race. Like, that was just not allowed, at least where I lived. Like, I never heard anyone do it, ever. And now, And it was the left that enforced that rule, which is a fine rule as far, you know what I mean? I'm okay with that. I don't think you should judge people on things they're not responsible for, they can't control. Now, that is like the currency of the very same people. They're like, well, the real problem is this racial group because of their race. It's like, wait, I thought that was the definition of racism. I'm losing track here.
Well, as I'm fond of saying, there's never been a better time in this country to be an actual racist.
Right.
Because you'll just get lumped in with me and Tucker Carlson.
We do segments on the show all the time. We're like, look, just to be clear, racism is wrong because judging people on things they're not responsible for is wrong, and group punishment and collective guilt are wrong. They're the opposite of everything that makes us America. That's wrong. And my producer, I never text, Google myself. My producer will text me and be like, there's another piece calling you a racist.
Again,
so Orwellian.
If you want to hide with half the population who has been labeled racist, you can just, and you're an actual racist.
It's pretty
You can
funny.
blend right in. The thing, I always marvel a little bit. I marvel at the lack of self-awareness. Like,
Yes.
I will turn on your show or I'll turn on the news and I'll see the black middle-aged professor from Princeton, and 7 inches to his left is a white guy in his 60s, and he'll go, old white guys. Again, this is the problem. And I'm thinking, there's an example of an old white guy who's not coming into the studio later to do his own show and may hear this on the radio. He's sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a few fat guy jokes and beyond, but I rarely do it with a obese person sitting next to me.
The best is when the old white guy himself does
He's nodding.
Right.
And
Or
he's
says,
nodding.
the problem is, and you really get the feeling what he's really saying is, eat me last.
Right.
You know what I mean? When the revolution comes, just remember, we welcome our new insect overlords and look forward to toiling in their sugar caves. I mean, that's what they're really saying.
Love The Simpsons. And once in a while, my wife, who's very Italian and very much in love with her son, who you'll probably be meeting later on today because she's pulling him out of school to meet you. He's a big fan. He's 12.
Oh, good for him.
He, every once in a while she turns to me and goes, we have a white male son who's going to be a white old guy one day, God willing. This campaign of going after this, especially when you have children, neighbors, a parent, half the people that are railing against old white men being evil have a dad who's old and white. It seems like a bizarre strategy for me. It also seems a little insincere because if you really think that's the problem, are you really voicing it the way you're voicing it? Or are you just trying to get a little, it's turned into a Chuck E. Cheese where you can get the tickets and they're redeemable for a stuffed animal, and you're just running around, and the more you yell about sexism or racism or old white men, more tickets come out of the skee ball machine. So you just hop on CNN or MSNBC, you start calling everyone racist. You say that a comment was a racist, it was driven by race. We have a society that where the cops are racist and there's systemic racism. School to prison. You yell school to prison pipeline, whole bunch of tickets come out and it's all redeemable. And next thing you know, you just got a whole pile of tickets because you ran your goddamn mouth about stuff you didn't believe in. You don't think it's true. There's no way they think that's the society we live in.
Whatever fad is current, they're fully on board with it. You got to wonder, though, if there are long-term implications of this one. I mean, it does kind of make people hate each other if you keep talking. And this is why we didn't used to talk this way, because the stakes are just too high.
Well, it is. I'm angry. If you are attempting to help a group, and that group could be young black males, or it could be females in general, or you could pick any tribe and any group, or any individual. And you, as a person who's in a position of authority, whether it be a parent or a politician, work overtime trying to convince that person there's a target on their back.
Exactly.
As far as society goes, there is nothing worse that you could do in terms of that person's progression in this society. You could go full Kathy Bates and hobble them.
That's exactly
and
right.
It would be much. I would much rather one of my children lose the ability to use their legs or legs and arms than have them convinced that society was against them, that the cops were against them, that they had a target on their back, that if they ever went on a job interview and didn't get the gig, it was because of their ethnicity, the color of their skin, their sexual proclivities. You have officially ruined that person that you claim every time you open your mouth. All you do is say, I am a champion for this person's rights. I'm a champion for this person. You hobble them, you destroy them, you ruin them.
I think that is such a wise observation, and I think that all the time. What would happen if I did to my kids what the Democratic Party does to African Americans? My kids would be in rehab. If I said to them, everybody hates you. Just like that's the baseline. You just need to know that. Everyone hates you. No matter what you do, you will never rise above their hatred of you because the system is rigged and it's inescapable. I mean, what would happen to maybe you have to be a parent to understand that.
Well, also, by the way, if a cop pulls you over, you better wrestle him for that gun because he's going to shoot you.
No, it's totally right. No, that's such a good point.
I don't like the hyperbole. Like, it's a dangerous message. It is a dangerous message.
I totally agree.
It's a very dangerous message. And mean as hell. Tucker, I watch your show on a nightly basis. It is, I watch it with my wife and I watch it with my son. There are no other shows we watch as a family. My wife's got a lot of, Orange County Housewives and Walking Deads. I have no interest in either one, or maybe they're the same show. I don't know which one is The Walking Dead, which one is Orange County. I have no interest in any of these things. I watch car shows, basically. But your show is appointment viewing at my house with my wife and my son. And I think the reason, if you go, and I'll watch Rachel Maddow to see what's happening, and I'll watch Sean Hannity to see what he's got to say, and I like many of the people on air. I've mentioned that I enjoy watching Bill Maher's show. I disagree with many of the things he says, but that's not a prerequisite for watching the show. I must agree with her. They must agree with everything. It's probably they must agree with everything that's in my head.
Of course.
Because all roads lead to narcissism, and that's where we're heading. Now, everything you're experiencing is narcissism. It's all narcissism.
That is so deep.
It's us at our weakest.
Exactly.
And we used to hide it. We used to have we were sort of stoic, men and women. I mean, I think stoicism is something we think of, it's a male thing, but women were that way too. You would say, if you were hurting, you'd say, I'm doing fine. If somebody would say, geez, your girlfriend dumped you and took off with this guy, how do you feel about that? You'd go, I wish him well. I wish her happiness. You wouldn't go, that fucking bitch, fuck her. I'm going to egg her house. We wouldn't do it. There was a sort of I'm not going to air my dirty laundry. Exactly. I'm not going to put everything out on my sleeve. If I felt threatened, I wouldn't admit I felt threatened. Instead of concocting scenarios where I feel threatened.
Yes.
It's also especially sad to me, and maybe it's just because I'm old school, where 50-something-year-old adult males are going, I felt threatened when really?
Being a victim diminishes you. It does not empower you at all. And that is the big lie, that the more I feel unfairly put upon, the more saintly I am. Actually, the less you are. And you're right. Its root is all narcissism. We're drowning in Lake Me, all of us.
I completely agree. I was going through the chapters of your book, although how many chapters do we have? 8, 7, 8?
Something like that.
It's about 6 hours plus, as I recall. It's healthy. It's a good listen. I I have a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are very left-leaning, and this is not a partisan book. It kind of goes and explains sort of how Washington works,
I'm a
how
liberal,
people
it
work.
turns out. I actually am the liberals I grew up with. I mean, I'm actually, for whatever it's worth, sort of very anti-war. I'm not for violence in general at all. I'm totally for free speech and freedom of conscience and due process, and I'm for the individual against the group. I mean, all the kind of classic... I'm suspicious of massive concentrations of corporate power. Why wouldn't I be? I'm worried about Google. I don't know. If it were 1979, I'd be like a liberal in good standing without all the bullshit, without all the patchouli and the wind chime earrings.
Well, you're going to see Dennis Prager a little later on today, and a topic you may want to discuss with him on or off camera is the difference between being liberal and being on the left.
Exactly.
There is a difference,
Huge.
and it's not spoken about. I'm not on the left, but I consider myself liberal.
Yeah, me too.
And the left has basically devoured liberals or sort of whatever Elvis did with the black man's music. The left has done with liberals, but
come on, that is too good. I'm stealing that.
You can have it.
I'm going to.
Dennis Prager's a liberal. Alan Dershowitz is a liberal.
Yes.
You're a liberal. I'm a liberal. We're not on the left. It's a there's a difference now.
I don't have the right to control what you believe. I don't think that I do. It never entered my mind that I have a right to. I can control your behavior to some extent. We live together, so you're not allowed to do certain things, and that's a prerequisite for living together. But I'm not allowed to control your beliefs. Those are yours alone. That's sacred. That's your conscience. And so I guess that makes me a screaming liberal. Fine. I'm happy to. I don't care what it's called. That's what I believe because I'm an American.
You speak your mind, and the show's even-handed. One thing that I really respect about your show is you constantly have guests who disagree with you, and not cartoon versions.
I try.
Of people who disagree with you.
By the way, that's the trap. I mean, you've done this for longer than I have, but you know the trap is, and the temptation is to get someone who's so self-discrediting and just stupid and inarticulate, and then just beat the crap out of them to show that you're God. That is a dead end.
Well, it's like you're a prize fighter and they want to set you up with a tomato can and they want to pad your record.
Exactly.
And while it's nice to be 30-0 and nobody wants to get in there with a formidable opponent with a strong right hand, in terms of respect, you have to fight the best.
Of course.
And you have on your show people that have 180-degree opposition to you, and these guys aren't guys who just fell off the cabbage truck. And you guys then go at it, and it's very entertaining because just like a good prize fight, no one wants to see Mike Tyson fight Butterbean. We want to see him fight someone who's formidable. And I switch the channels around, and I watch other programs on Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and I don't see that.
Well, their viewers don't want it. Their viewers don't. No, they don't want it. They don't want, and you watch who they hire. I mean, I hired Rachel Maddow. That's why she's on MSNBC, because I worked there, and I had a show, and I wanted the most capable, most cat-like, quickest debate partner I could find, and I got her, and she was. I mean, she's smart, like no joke.
Oh, and she's very...
She is. It's legitimate, too.
Another thing I'd like to point out to people, or just to have them up their quality of life a little bit. She is amazingly skilled.
Yes.
And very good. And Bill Maher's amazingly skilled and very good. And you may disagree with a lot of what both of them say, but you should not diminish their abilities.
At all.
And I wish more people would sort of think in a way that said, okay, I disagree with that guy, but I'm not going to call him a hack. Well, she's unfunny, or her. Well, that's my point.
Yeah, no, I agree.
She's very skilled and she's very good,
and she's sincere too. By the way,
and
if I can
she's
say
sincere.
She believes what she's saying, even if I don't, but she does, and
right.
I like that. I find that edifying. Like, I think, first of all, as someone who does it, I can appreciate the skill it requires to do it at the level she does it. So, like, I stand back and I'm like, well, You did a good job. But I also think it's just good for us to hear the best possible case for things we don't agree with, because maybe our minds will be changed. It's happened to me. Like, I've debated people where they say something and I mean to mock it, then I'm like, wait, actually, that's not so crazy. And you find yourself, your mind opening, which is the whole pleasure of being human. Like, changing your mind is one of the great joys in life, I think. I don't know who made up the rule that you have to be your 8th grade self. I don't want to be my 8th grade self. I want to be as close as I can to what's actually true. And so I want to always be open. I interviewed this guy I could give you 1,000 examples. I interviewed this guy the other day who's a vegan. Well, I just had a ham sandwich for lunch. I'm not a vegan. But I bring this guy on to be mean to him. I guess. I don't really know. I just had him on, hey, Mr. Vegan Guy. And within about 4 sentences, I realized this guy totally believes what he's saying. He's not trying to force anyone else to accept what he believes. He believes in freedom of conscience. And he starts to make the case for veganism. And by the end, I'm not sold on it, but I took it much more seriously. And I so enjoyed hearing an unexpected point of view that was serious and thoughtful and non-coercive that a guy really believed. Like, I loved it. Like, why wouldn't I?
Well, changing your mind is, if you are comfortable, secure, confident, and I don't mean like a deodorant commercial confident, where it's like hot chick with you on the subway and you put your hand up on the rail and she smiles with your armpit in her face. Not that. Just confident. You're comfortable in your own skin. If you're comfortable in your own skin, no one's more confident than the guy in the subway with the hot chick and the arm.
Deodorant commercial confident. I love that.
He's standing at the boardroom. He's pointing at stuff. People are nodding. He's got his jacket slung over his shoulder. He should be pitting out at this point. There's an Asian business guy in there. But not that confident, but confident like I am comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
So what I've found, whether it's changing of the mind or changing of the behavior, when I was a carpenter and a journeyman carpenter would come up to me and he'd go, hey, listen, when you're cutting the plywood, score it. If you're ripping it, you're going long ways, fine. You're cross-cutting it, going against the grain, score it with a utility knife. It won't chip that way, and use a straight edge. I wouldn't go, hey, man, this is the way I do it. I'd go, thank you. And
exactly.
And because I got a little better as a carpenter, and when there's an idea that you initially think is not your own, or maybe that you're not going to agree with, and then you hear it, feel free to go, thank you. I'm now a little bit smarter.
Well, it's so exciting. It's so exciting to learn something new, or to be slightly more honest about things, or to jettison your dumb preconceptions. Like, we never go up to the mental attic and just assess, do I need this shit anymore? Is this actually useful anymore?
But don't you think, and again, all roads lead to narcissism, it's because people are so tied up in themselves that and maybe feel a little precarious about their own intellect, that if they will concede this, somehow their house of cards is going to collapse.
The edifice falls apart. No, that's totally right. And the problem with narcissism, if I can just say as a former drinker, like alcohol, is you think it makes you more self-confident, but actually it leaches your self-confidence. It makes you insecure. So the more you think about yourself, the weaker you become. That is true in every case. I don't even like to look in the mirror anymore. I'm so paranoid about becoming insecure and unhappy. And in this business, it's pretty easy to become. Why are so many famous people? I mean, you spend your life around famous people. You tell me. Why are 90% or higher of all famous people super unhappy?
I have a few thoughts, and it's interesting. You're talking about looking in the mirror. I was standing in the front part of the studio 3 days ago, and one of my guys had his phone on him, and he said, Jimmy Kimmel's been sitting in with Stern this week, and he was talking about you. And I immediately got a little uncomfortable. And then I said, what were they saying? And they kind of gave me the gist of what they were saying. And then he held up his phone and he said, you want to hear it? And I said, no.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love Jimmy and I love Stern, and I'm sure they're saying nice things. but I immediately became uncomfortable
Exactly.
With the thought of hearing it. And I don't know why. It was just my impulse to not.
It's a wise
physically
impulse, though.
Hear it. I don't know if it's wise. I honestly don't know if it's wise, weak,
because you know
insecure.
where it leads. No, it's the opposite. You know where that leads. Thinking about yourself and more precisely, other people's perception of you will make you more insecure and less happy and like less loving to the people you love. And it's a cycle that is so recognizable if you're around public people. I mean, it's like they're all that way. It's horrifying.
Yeah, I'll answer the question about why everyone so famous is so miserable in 1 second. We'll take a quick break. Ship of Fools is the name of the book. How a Selfish Ruling Class is Bringing America to the Brink of Revolution. It's available now on Amazon. You can bookmark us and click on through our site if you want to show a little love toward us. And, of course, the Tucker Carlson Tonight. Fantastic show, weeknights on Fox. You'll find it. Just put it in the DVR. Take a quick break. Right back with Tucker Carlson right after this.
And now, Sonny Carolla reads a tweet from James Woods.
Jim Acosta, you are, sir, not a journalist, but an enema of the people.
Now, back to the Adam Carolla Show.
You'll meet that lad in about an hour, God willing. He's pulled out of school. I'm the biggest proponent of pulling kids out of school
totally
for important events.
I did it all my kids' childhoods. Exactly.
If you love Tucker Carlson and he doesn't get out to the West Coast or to Pop's Car Museum very often, then you got to swing by and say hi. Experiences. I love them. Okay. So, why is everyone in Hollywood miserable? A couple of thoughts. It's not something I examine. I've really given a lot of thought to, but I'll try to formulate something for you in real time. First things first. Higher intellect people, and you can disagree with Hollywood all you want, but they're usually high intellect people.
Oh, very. Some of them.
High intellect people weaponize their brain. Their brain can be a force for creativity, but it can also turn. It can be used against them. It's essentially, they don't have a slingshot, they have a Gatling gun, and that Gatling gun can turn in any direction. It can be used against them, can be used against their own. So it's a kind of a danger of a high intellect, and it's gone on for time immemorial. All the great painters and the artists and the thinkers, and they're always, famously depressed.
It's a volatile group.
Cutting their own ears off and sending them to whores and things of that nature. So you have this sort of brain that's not reptilian. It's sort of high functioning. And thus you notice things. And there's also frustration, which is they have Houdini's wand and it's out of batteries. They think they can wave something around and make it happen, and it never happens. There's this march. We're going to march for women. We're going to do this. I'm going to start an online campaign. I'm going to hashtag Me Too or Black Lives Matter. Like, I'm going to get and do something. I'm going to go out and do something because I'm me, and I have a name, and I have a face, and people recognize this, and I'm going to exact some change. Washington and beyond. And then it doesn't happen. And there has to be a constant frustration, which is, I'm going to clean up the oceans, and I'm going to create sustainable electricity for all and solve all the food and water problems in Africa. And 10 years goes by, and everything's exactly the same as it was, or maybe a little bit worse. If you imagine you live in a world where you've anointed yourself the poobah of problems, and I shall solve them, and nothing ever gets solved.
Totally right.
That would be a very depressing life.
But why wouldn't you instead solve the problems closest to you? Like, decide instead of, electrifying Burkina Faso that you're going to make your wife happy, or make sure your kids don't become dope addicts, or be kind to your brother-in-law who's out of a job. Those are achievable goals, right?
Those are achievable, but they're bourgeoisie and very local. And I'm a global phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
I am known from here to Cannes, and I'm not going to just handle my business in Encino. I need to be known globally. And yes, quietly recycling, quietly taking care of the people around me, quietly having a strong bond and relationship with my kids. That's all good and well, but it does not make for legacy. It just makes for a handful of people that don't resent the shit out of their dad. Or mom. So I need to make these sort of proclamations that get me global adoration and praise. So there's that. But then there's also this other thing that I feel very strongly about as a former carpenter, which is you need to physically do things with your hands.
I agree completely.
And if you live in a world where it's all up in your head and it's the next script and it's the next recital and it's the next movement and it's the next everything, and you never really just get out in that garage and start slamming together a bunk bed for your kid.
Totally agree.
Or change your own oil in your car, or just sort of get some dirt or grease under your fingernails. That kind of leads to madness. Men especially. They need to really get out there and get their hands dirty.
And I do. I have a wood shop in both. I have two houses, and I have a wood shop in both of them. And I love to build stuff. I worked as a carpenter in the summer on my childhood, and I think I have low-grade hand tool skills, but they're good enough to bang out a bunk bed or a table or a chair or whatever. And I find enormous, deep, like really deep satisfaction in doing that, in making stuff. I think it's like essential. I'd go crazy otherwise.
I have worked around blue-collar guys my entire life. I never took a break, because when I got out of the business, I then started renovating houses of my own to live in. I've always worked in it. I've always worked around those guys. I do the same now in the automotive world. I've never met more even people.
Yes.
They're never in a bad mood.
I agree.
It's not even on the table. There is no such thing as a bad mood. It's not, I'm not feeling it today, boss, or I'm having a bad mood. They just show up, and they're the most even people on the planet.
Exactly.
Because they're sort of on their feet and they have purpose.
They're satisfied because they've actually achieved something.
Right. And another one of our sort of scary, as we move toward this digital world, this virtual world, and you are on your show and you're talking about the dangers of Google and Facebook and all this sort of tech world. There's a real danger of getting away from forget the tech, but the tactile.
Oh, totally.
And of people sitting in air-conditioned cubicles staring at a phone all day, reading things about themselves versus raising a barn.
Exactly.
Look, we're not that far away from where we were 100 years ago. We're animals. We need to be outdoors. We need to move.
It'll take thousands of years to evolve into digital people, millions of years. We're still agricultural people. I mean, these things are baked in the genetic cake. Like, that's who we are. We actually have a physical need to do this stuff.
Yes. So much like you understand the part where you no longer have to walk 8 miles to a well and carry the water back in a gourd on your head. So now you've simulated it with a rowing machine or a treadmill or whatever. You better start simulating some work in the garage.
I agree.
And as important as it is, we understand physiologically, well, I don't need to run from a lion anymore, or I don't need to stack lumber, wood for the winter. I don't need to chop wood for the winter. I have natural gas coming in. That'll heat my house. But you still go to the gym because you understand the benefits of it, or you still exercise because you understand the benefits of it. Do this exercise too. There's benefits. And we're constantly trying to talk people out of it. It's like, you go, I've had it a million times where I've said, just go, you want to paint the den yourself. And then one of my wife's friends will go, don't paint the den, have somebody paint the den. Right. And I'll go, no, you paint the den. And they'll go, you don't have to do that. And it's like, I know you don't have to do it. You get to do it.
But we have a surf class for that, and your time is too important.
Right.
And what people are missing is that actually the satisfaction is in doing it. Doing it. I mean, I feel this. I feel this way so strongly that I've kind of imposed it on a lot of the people who work for me. Learn a physical skill, and carpentry is the perfect one. You can do it in an apartment. Yeah.
At the surf class, interesting topic. So I'm very much interested in this notion of, well, there's a couple of things that I find sort of insane for people to say out loud, but when the ruling parties, you call it, when they say, oh yeah, who's going to pick your grapes? Who's going to pick your lettuce? It's like, well, we'll pay a living wage for people to pick lettuce. And they go, oh, so you're going to pay $7 for a head of lettuce? And I go, I'll pay whatever the cost is for a head of lettuce, just like cars all have airbags. And we've mandated it for safety.
No, but you're missing it because the whole goal the primary goal is to increase shareholder value and everything else is secondary. But the second goal is to have the cheapest retail products you can. So the more brightly colored plastic crap you own, the happier you are. And the kind of ideal is to have an entire storage facility filled with brightly colored plastic crap made by slave labor in China. And then that's nirvana. You win.
I could see our other chapter about working in the garage in terms of winning. But I'm a white guy. I grew up in the Valley. I have a unique opportunity or perspective because I cleaned carpets for a living. If you can picture, carpet cleaning is probably now, I mean, in terms of just sort of manual labor, in terms of who is doing that work, you know, when we grew up in the San Fernando Valley, the gardeners were Japanese.
Oh, literally.
Literally Japanese, and now they're all Hispanic. Now, carpet cleaning would even be below the construction site
there are a lot of fingernails in carpets.
In terms of the ethnic breakdown of it. When I cleaned carpets in the San Fernando Valley in the early 80s, I worked with Todd Euler, who was a Jew. I worked with Willie Maldonado, who was a Jew. I worked with two guys, Chris Bohm and Ray Oldhofer, who were German guys. And then there was me. There was no Hispanics. So when I watch people pontificate on, well, who's going to do this work? I would just raise my hand and yell at the TV, poor people.
Yeah.
Like we used to do it.
Right.
Because we were poor. That's why we did it. This notion, it's such an interesting thing where you're white, you don't do this work. No, we're poor. We do this work. And then I got into digging ditches. And I literally dug ditches. And I just got into a hole. And I had Hispanic guys around me. And that's what I did because I was poor. And eventually Ray and Willie and Chris, they all started doing it too because they were poor.
Whatever happened to them?
They're all still in it. Really? They're all still in the building world. I sort of caught myself when I was about 22 and I thought, is this it? Like, are you just going to be on a construction site your whole life, like driving a pickup truck? And are you ever going to own a home? Like I actually stopped when I was about 22 or 23 and I was in my 1-bedroom apartment in North Hollywood with 2 other roommates. And they were sort of like, look, we're going to work all week and then we're going to get beers and we're going to get some pot and we're going to have a good time. And then we're going to go back and be miserable again Monday morning on a job site. And I actually sort of thought, I don't know. What's it going to be like? I remember at the time thinking, when I'm 30.
Yeah,
do I still want to be doing this? How am I ever going to own a house? I'd like to drive a car, not a pickup truck. And so I still had to go to work all day on a job site because I didn't have any money and my parents didn't have any money. I didn't have any choice. But at night, I was taking my improv classes and doing open mic stand-up and stuff. And I had this very real concern where, well, you're 22, you're 23, 30 feels like a million light years away.
Yeah.
But you are going to turn 30 and you do at some point want to own a house, don't you? And I should start chipping away at this other potential profession that could pay me enough to buy a house one day and get off this construction site. So I just consciously started doing that at night. Everyone else, again, was like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm I'm going to take a class at the Groundlings, and they're like, we're drinking beer. It's, it's nighttime. And the classes were $350, and I didn't have $350. I didn't have insurance for my truck. And I remember sort of laughing at me, like going like, I remember one time trying to kind of explain it to a guy I was working with at lunch. He's like, so what do you do? And I was like, it's an improv class. You make things up. And they pay you? He said. I said, no, you pay them. And he's like, why would you pay them to make stuff up? I don't.
Fair question.
It seemed like a pretty fair question to me at the time as well. And I remember sort of going, it's like a class. Like, well, so you learn how to do stuff. And then what? And I was like, I don't know. And then you go get paid to make stuff up. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I just know there's this part. But everyone else sort of just stayed in the construction business. And I eventually got into the comedy business.
Did they make any money in it?
My two closest friends, Ray and Chris, got into earthquake rehab work out here. They got me in earthquake rehab work out here. That was really dirty and really dangerous and really miserable work, and crawling under houses and digging footings with a coffee can and crawl spaces of 2 feet and dead cats. And it was like, for me, it was like, I got to get out of here. But I can't leave. I need the money. I don't have any choice. I don't have any way to support myself. I didn't have the skills to fill out an application and get a job at a nice restaurant as a bartender or something like that. So, they stayed in it, and they make a living, but not a good living. And they just kind of eked it out. But sort of to your point, when you talk in the book and in your show about illegal immigration and this notion of like who's going to do these jobs, and as it pertains to the black community, in 20 some odd years, make it 30 some odd years of doing this work and being on these job sites, I have never, ever worked with a black person. No. I've never worked with the people that need the jobs the most, the inner city, young black man, whatever. And now I don't say it's the same in Atlanta, but in Los Angeles, 100% Hispanic on the job site and 100% zero African American.
Totally
zero. True. I have never seen it. I've been on 1,000 job sites from Simi Valley to Malibu to Los Angeles and Silver Lake and beyond. I've never worked with a black man. Ever.
That's true everywhere except in the Deep South. In Alabama, which has a very high black, it's like a third African American, low immigration levels, you will see black guys on road crews. But that's totally true. But the real problem that mass immigration solves is the problem of white household help, which is what our upper classes always had up until really right after the Second World War. You would have Irish help. And the problem with Irish help is they look too much like you and they speak your language. And it's very uncomfortable. At a certain point, you ask, why is someone who could be my cousin washing my underwear? And it's too strange.
Right.
But so you on some level feel that you're exploiting this person. Right. But when you have help from Guatemala, you're the hero of the story. You don't need to get involved with the details of their lives because it's so far from your world that it's not even real to you. They don't speak your language anyway. They may have kids back in Tegucigalpa, but that's not your concern. All you know is this is a great country. You're offering them a hand up into our country. So even as they walk the dogs while you're at SoulCycle, you're not like some Saudi princeling abusing his Malaysian servant. You're like a truly decent, big-hearted person. You're a progressive in the best sense, helping this needy third worlder, who's grateful to you for it, come into our country and experience the bounty we have. It's like the perfect story to tell yourself as you're paying this person less than your own kids are making on their stupid summer job at Nantucket. It's like, no, I'm serious. It's like the greatest arrangement for upper middle class people ever devised. Servants without guilt.
No, it's interesting and it's funny, and I'll have to I'll have to verbalize this. I have a Guatemalan nanny, but I was at her daughter's wedding. May have paid for it. I never know around here. I was at her daughter's wedding with all of our crew here celebrating last weekend.
In town? Or in
town?
Wow.
In town. Look, I like her. I don't like her that much. She celebrated, I think, her 50th birthday at my house and brought all
awesome.
the family and all the friends. So I'm guilty of what you say.
Oh, so am I.
But also, I value our relationship. I sit in the kitchen and talk to her about life all the time. And actually, one of the reasons I find myself talking to Olga, my nanny from Guatemala, in the kitchen quite often is because our backgrounds are much more similar than I have with my white neighbors.
I'm sure that's true.
She comes from her parents had more money than my parents, which bothers me. But we both understand work and discipline and focus, and we hate lethargy and privilege. And we're kindred spirits. It's like a couple of football coaches from different teams, like talking to each other about discipline and hard work and like what it's going to take.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I enjoy those conversations. I thought it'd be fun to play for you a clip. I know you talk quite a bit on your show and in your book, Ship of Fools, about family and about education, but mostly about the family and the disintegration of the family and just how impossible it is to get ahead when the family is disintegrated.
Yes.
And how certain groups are falling further and further behind because of the disintegration of the family, and other groups are reaching the summit because of the focus on the family and education. Gavin Newsome, who will probably be the next governor of California, was in here some years ago. He was sitting where you were sitting, and he brought up predatory check cashing places, and he was doing the usual stuff, and I got into it with him on family and education, and I thought you'd probably enjoy a 3-minute snippet of this. I think we whacked it up a little bit. It was 50 minutes of him and I going at it.
I'm sorry I missed that.
He could not. You can find it on the internet. I think you will enjoy it. And the difference between the Tucker Carlson show and the Adam Carolla show is at some point a producer's going to say in Tucker's ear, wrap it up, or 30 seconds or whatever it is. I have all the time in the world.
I envy that.
And Gavin Newsome had nowhere to go. And I'll play a snippet of it. Look down the road 6 months. Yes, your husband lost his job. That's why you need to sock away some money when he's gainfully employed. Yes, they foreclosed on your home. That's why you need to have a network, a community, friends, family members, money put away.
I got it, but think about
Don't
Adam,
have the kids.
Half of African Americans in the state of California, roughly half of Latino families, have no access to a checking account or an ATM, things we take for granted. They don't have a check.
What's wrong with them?
And well, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away.
Why do we have them?
A lot of different reasons, but roughly half those families don't. And where do they
why
end
do
up?
Armenians have them?
But where they end up is in check cashing places.
But I want to know why those groups, why those two groups don't have access.
Well, a lot of just happens to be that. We can talk
they're
about
flawed?
this. No, they're hardly flawed, but they're strong.
Do Asians have this problem?
I mean, a lot of communities have. A lot of whites have these problems.
Oh,
but
so that's not just black and Hispanic.
No, but
why'd you bring up black and Hispanic?
Because the magnitude is ominous.
Why blacks and Hispanics?
Across the board, all socioeconomic.
Okay, so
everybody's struggling.
So Asians are suffering just as much as blacks.
The face of welfare is not an African American family.
So it's Asian, Jewish, it's all of them.
Caucasian. It's a lot of folks in society. A lot of folks are struggling.
Okay.
But we want to go to the issue of race as it relates to the issues of poverty. And what we had in in redevelopment agencies and concentration of poverty in public housing and all of these things start to lead to why. The answer to your question of why is it concentrated in the African American community?
Why?
Looking at that history, one cannot exclude that reality. I just think that's naive to suggest that those things don't matter. When families were broken up.
How about the Jews? No problems in the past?
No, of course. Every community's got their struggles.
Who's had it worse?
Even the Irish had struggles.
Who do you think had it worse?
I get it. But
what about the Jews? They seem to be. Why are the Jews doing well?
You know what? In 1967, blacks couldn't even marry whites in this country. Not 1927. In 16 states, they were denied because people use religious arguments to deny people
Jews got put in ovens and
I understand, and it's disgraceful.
Okay, so...
And that's why, and it's completely fair game.
How are the Jews doing now?
I mean, a lot of Jewish families doing well, a lot of families struggling.
Really?
Absolutely.
At the Czech place?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll
go down to the Czech place.
Across the board, people are struggling.
All right, of course. Everyone's struggling.
Look at the unemployment lines.
A lot of Jews.
It includes Americans of all types, all races, all ethnicities, all sexual orientations.
They're all the same.
My gosh.
That's right.
Your assertion.
If you really cared about these people, you'd focus on the real problem.
Which is?
Families.
Families are profoundly important.
Okay.
And
that's
we
where the answer
do care
lies.
about families.
And
all right,
that's the answer.
I agree. I don't know. I wish it was that simple, but God bless you. I think it's absolutely critical. I agree with you. We're not denying that.
It's simple. Father, stay at home, raise your family, do your homework with your kids, put an emphasis on education, like the Jews, like the Asians, and let's see what happens to the problem in 20 years.
I just
how many of you are at the check cashing place.
What I don't like is then the sort of assertion within the statement. It's what you're not to suggest that the Latino community doesn't value those same things or African. I just don't accept that.
Well, they don't value it to the extent that some other groups do.
No. Yeah.
You don't agree with that?
Your opinion.
I think statistics back me up.
Yeah, well, I think it's a much more complex issue.
That's not complex at all. That was 50 minutes of that.
Okay, that's one of the most I don't know if this is being filmed or not, but I was literally twisting around in my chair, and that was unbelievable.
You can go to the internet and listen to 50 minutes
that was
of that.
Because I do a species of that every night, so I know exactly what that is. First of all, that was like shockingly great. I just love it, and I wish I had the balls to say some of the things you just said. A. B. He is fireproof. Like, there's literally nothing. You trapped him 3 separate times in a logic cul-de-sac. He couldn't get out. And he whips around and he's like, yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And but wait, and he's like, no, you make a really good point, but it's more complicated. How's more complicated? Well, nothing you said could pull him off his tone of like totally Xanaxed out, like children are our future bullshit.
Oh my God. He is literally, if people still sold snake oil, Gavin Newsom would sell it, but he uses it all in his hair. So he has no product anymore to push. But he is
Well, so what happened
insane.
After you got off the air? What did he say to you? Did he recognize that was like him immolating?
There's again, you heard 3 minutes. There's another 47 minutes.
So, but how was it after? Like there were no microphones.
He doesn't care. His thing is I'll never come back here again. Like people say all the time, when's Gavin Newsom coming back? I go, no, never. He doesn't. He can't because his arguments aren't sustainable. That's the problem.
They're not even arguments.
They're not even arguments. They're assertions. And so he can go on HuffPo all he wants and excel because no one ever will push back. He started he started this tirade by saying he's tired of the predatory check cashing places preying on black and Hispanics. And I said, why is it that they're preying on blacks and Hispanics? Why are blacks and Hispanics using these places? And he said, they don't have access to ID. And I said, why don't they have access to ID? And then it just sort of spun out from there. But you listen to the whole thing online.
Do you do a lot of adversarial interviews?
No. I've gotten into it with a few people on a few occasions, but most people or many people that think like Gavin Newsom don't want to come in and hear what I have to say.
Well, not after that. That must be I can't believe I've never heard that before. That must be a pretty famous piece of tape.
I don't know. There's a good one with me and Gloria Allred. If you're ever trapped on a plane and you want to listen to me go after some people you probably don't enjoy.
She's honestly the worst, most disingenuous person ever.
She's the greatest. I got into it with her. There's some good stuff out there. I'll play. So I constantly go like, look, the families are breaking down. Keep the families together and let's right the ship of fools.
But nobody cares. And by the way, look.
And by the way, also, somehow it's a racist statement to talk about family and education.
Here's what's so interesting, though. So I lived in Washington from the age of 15 until now, and it's a half-black city, and it's got the same numbers as every other inner city. You know, a lot of affluent black families, but the majority live in the conditions we used to call inner city blight, you know, where no one has a father. Everyone thought this was like specific to a culture, right? Rural America now has the same problems. Where do the problems come from? Well, part of them comes from a really simple fact. When men make less than women, women don't want to marry them. Families are not formed. There's a ton of social science on this. Women don't, there's many exceptions to this, obviously, but in general, over big populations, women do not want to marry men who make less or who are shorter. And so when men overall make less than women, I know the goal is to make sure that women make more than men, but when that actually happens, as it has in a lot of parts of rural America, it's true in inner city black America in a lot of places, in most places, you don't get marriage. You still get kids being born because people are driven to procreate, but the families are not formed. And then the cycle begins with like utterly predictable results. So it's actually not a race thing in a lot of ways.
Well, it's not a race thing. Almost as if you took the same theory and brought it to the animal kingdom. Yes. Any group, I don't care what the different species is, if the dad left, the cubs would not do well, or the offspring would not do well. It's a nature thing. It's not a sociological thing or a political thing.
But what if you had a whole party whose success was like based on the existence of single moms with kids? Where actually a huge part of the electoral base was broken families. Like you had to have those families broken in order to win elections. You would have a huge incentive to continue this garbage and to wreck your whole country. That's not all that's going on, but that's part of it. When was the last time you heard an I'm not being, there are a lot of Democrats like in real life care about this issue and they're good people. But among the political class and the Democratic Party, when was the last time you heard someone say, all things being equal, many exceptions, of course, but in general, it's better to have kids, especially boys, grow up with a biological father at home. Can they say? They cannot say that. They're not allowed to say that, even though there's no dispute about it. Among anyone who looks at it for 5 minutes at the numbers, there's no dispute. They cannot say that. What does that tell you?
Oh, listen, every time I get into it with these people, I go, look, all things being equal, better to be raised with the mother and the father than the two moms or the two dads or the single mom. And they go, I know a woman named Sharon.
Right.
She's single.
Exactly.
She lives in Plentywood, Montana. She raised 3 kids. They're all doctors. She did it alone. She did it off and on with her partner, Joan. It's like, I'm not saying there's not a person.
Of course not.
By the way, intellectually, you have announced you're an imbecile if I say all things being equal and then you quote me specific cases where it worked out one time.
Exactly.
It's the most disingenuous argument anyone can ever make. I'm never sure how they can keep a straight face when they're talking to someone like you or someone like me who understands what's going on. This notion of you're a nutritionist and you go, look, diet and exercise, that's the key to looking good in your trunks. And I go, I know this guy.
Exactly.
He eats funnel cake.
My grandmother smoked till she was 80 and she was fine.
Yeah, soaked in vermouth. And he looks fantastic around the pool. Like, okay, that's that one guy and his crazy genetics. Now, can we get back to...
Exactly. Talking about the country? Yeah, I know.
I'll play one more clip you'll enjoy. So shortly after this, I went on HuffPo to plug one of my books. And the gal from HuffPo also didn't agree. I always love it. And Tucker, you should understand this. Most of this stuff is a sort of elitism, intellectual, academia sort of snobbery where they're going, I don't think it's not quite that simple. Like they love to go, you're oversimplifying, meaning you're a simple-minded person.
You're a simpleton.
Who is oversimplifying. Who oversimplifies things? Simpletons. that's what you would do.
Of course.
But I am educated, so it's much more nuanced. But of course, you couldn't understand nuance because you're a simpleton who oversimplifies things. She can listen to this condescending witch on HuffPo as I defend my Gavin Newsome argument.
He didn't give you a good answer as to perhaps what he thought maybe some of the systemic causes are that
he had zero.
Leave minority groups in in positions where they are more likely to live in poverty and be preyed on by.
I gave him the answer, which is family and education, and we can all get out of this mess. And he said it was much more complicated than that. But then
it is a little more complicated than that, than just saying family and education.
Not much.
Oh, but come on. I mean, it's a system, right? Where it is much harder to get out of a certain income bracket if you're born into it. If you live in a certain neighborhood,
right.
that affects the quality.
That's why you have to focus on family and education. I mean, I'm not Christian or anything.
You're not going to solve everything.
It would solve everything, yeah.
Just family and education? What about, the drug war that we have that's failing? What about the school-to-prison pipeline, things like this?
The school-to-prison pipeline, if you focused on education, I think would interrupt the school-to-prison pipeline.
Well, the problem is that schools are maybe not focusing on education so much as they are on reprimanding children.
All right, this is every argument is against diet and exercise. Diet and exercise. Yeah,
physically. She didn't even laugh. The funny thing is, the people who accuse you of
I was totally sincere. I meant like family and education would definitely interrupt this make-believe school-to-prison pipeline unless there's an actual vacuum.
Okay, but that's the point where a smart person pauses and realizes how stupid he sounds and laughs. Like in a stuff where like, okay, you're right. There's not actually a vacuum tube that's sucking people, out of East LA into Folsom. It's just like there isn't that thing. So I should laugh or acknowledge it. But as always, the person calling you dumb is too dumb even to get the joke.
Yes, there's much of that going on. Oh, Tucker, I feel like we could just go and go and go.
I could watch those videos forever.
Well,
who was that woman from HuffPo, by the way?
Somebody with a degree. The part I love, I have no idea. What is her name?
Aliona Minkowski.
She's not there anymore. The part I love the most about people like that is they simply absorb talking point du jour, spit it out, school to prison pipeline. Hey, that's hot. And then it just goes away and they move on to the next talking point du jour. It's funny to me how bored they get with their own talking points. They have these hot little, children at the border ripped out of their mother's arms, and then they're right on to Stormy Daniels, and then they're right back to Judge Kavanaugh, and then they're right up back to school prison pipeline. Like they trot it out. They give it a big, like they brought out new Coke. It fails, and then they just move right on to their next product endorsement.
It's just Dasani. The problem is that we imagine that they believe anything they're saying. And the reason they can keep repeating the same banal talking points again and again as if, like they're fresh, is that they never lose sight of the goal, which is controlling you. It's about political power. That's it.
Last question for you. As a thoughtful person and someone with nerve endings and someone who wants to be liked. I think everyone wants to be liked, and no one wants to go on Twitter and be called a bigot or racist or whatever. How do you deal with being what I know is a very decent person, and also if people were really exposed to your talking points, I think they would view you differently than how they think of you minus the talking points. I always talk to Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is very right politically, but he reads the New York Times and the Washington Post and watches CNN. Like, he studies the other side, the side he disagrees with. He imbibes much of the information. He disagrees with 80% of it, but he understands who's who and what he knows who Charles Blow is. I don't know that Charles Blow knows who Dennis Prager is, and I don't know.
Feel the need to know.
I don't know if he wants to get to know Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson. I know Rachel Maddow. I don't know her personally. I know her work. I watch her. I find her to be quite a good craftsperson at what she does, and quite talented. I don't know that Rachel Maddow or whomever is studying Larry Elder on the other side, or whoever it is. Mark Levin. Why?
Because they're not having a political debate. They're waging a theological war where they believe that they've won the argument before it begins. They know that they're virtuous and you're sinful, they're saved and you're doomed, and their job is to convert you by force, period. So we're not having the same conversation from the same starting point at all. And our mistake is imagining that we can win over someone who's a religious zealot. You can't. As an atheist, you must already know that. Yes. So just keep in mind, you're arguing with religious people. They may not believe in God, but it doesn't make them any less religious.
Amen, brother. Tucker Carlson, Ship of Fools, the name of the book. It is out. It's number 1, which I love, on Amazon and New York Times as we speak. It's available on Amazon, and you just click on through and enjoy his show, Tucker Carlson Tonight, family viewing. It is something I think you will enjoy with your children, enjoy with your wife, or enjoy with your husband, as I do. That's weeknights. That's 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox. It's out here at 5. And shoot him a tweet, a nice tweet at Tucker Carlson. I am going to be doing basic cable commentary, Chris Maxipata, I think at Stand Up Live Arizona. That's at this Saturday night.
Yep, this
2
Saturday.
shows.
Adam Ray.
And Adam Ray is going to be up on stage with us. Go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows and live events and merch, and say hi to Lynette over at Carolla Drinks. Until next time, Adam Carolla for Tucker Carlson saying mahalo. Well, you were telling me off the air, I think you had a couple of John Belushi stories.
Yeah, so hard.
And I do love the old stories from the old days, and you were around for all of it because you were a fixture early and often. And you saw, I mean, you had hits before SNL even came on the air.
Sure, yeah.
And so you got to hobnob with a lot of these people and see them. But I didn't know what your Belushi story was.
Well, certainly we all genuflected at the genius of John and Dan, what they delivered, what they created, and what they performed. I mean, we're just in awe of these people. And I always want to meet as many as I can. And traveling 300 plus dates a year with the Amboy Dukes and then with the damn Yankees and in my band, I'm here, there, and everywhere. And like I was telling John at lunch today, I would go out after a concert in L.A. with Rodney Dangerfield, Robin Williams, Sam Kinison, and the Afro guy. What's my hero?
Richard Pryor.
Why did I not know that name just now? I'm hanging out with these guys, and Bruce Willis, who's a funny guy, and we'd go to Thai restaurants at 3 a.m, and they're all fascinated with the hardware on my belt, and we had jokes about it. You can imagine how much funny jokes those guys made about me carrying a gun and going out at 3 a.m. at a Thai restaurant. So I got to hang out with dream masters. The masters of the craft, Parnelli Jones and Fred Bear and Chuck Berry. I played bass for Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. I got to meet the Motown heroes. I played with the Motown Funk Brothers at Cobo Hall in '64. My God. So my point is, I wanted to meet John Belushi. I did a sold-out concert 2 nights in Chicago, late 78. And they said, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd are filming a movie, the famous movie, Blues Brothers. And they bought a club, and they'd like to send a car and have you come by the club and jam. They got some of the Duck Dunn of the
Donald Duck Dunn,
the master. I go, I haven't jammed with him yet. And Steve Cropper, I said, yes, right after I get off stage, let's go.
Matt Guitar Murphy.
Yes, the gods of thunder, the gods of soul music, the masters, the tenors.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, that's awesome. So, and I could tell you this about my experience with Jimi Hendrix and Chuck Berry and Bon Scott and all the heroes. And so we pull up this club, and it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we go in, and it's real dingy and dark, and I'm okay with dingy and dark, but there's distant, my favorite music in the background, maybe some Motown, maybe some Chuck Berry music, and I go in, and it looks like an outtake from Scarface, the worst moment. There's John behind a desk with a pile of cocaine, and they were completely gone, and they couldn't form syllables. Mm-hmm. There was no. If they invited me down, you would think it would be about the music that we share a love for, or the excellence that we might share, or the entertainment.
Yeah, you thought you were going to jam,
or maybe some Lenny Bruce stories or something. Mm-hmm. And once again, no can talk.
Right.
So I just fuck this. God damn it. So I turned around and left. And I don't know how long it was before he died, but the same story with Jimi Hendrix, same story with Bon Scott, same story with Keith Moon, all these incredible geniuses that thought getting high would benefit something. So that just fortified my militant anti-substance battle cry, because all these different experiences. I spent 2 nights with Keith Richards in New York City. My hero, this Chuck Berry baton handle. He's handing me the baton from Chuck Berry. And we couldn't talk. He couldn't talk.
He was too fucked up the whole time.
I said, God damn it, I'm with Keith Richards. He was hanging around me because he wanted to know all about my guns. Funny stories. But we're at Studio 54. I'm like repulsed by what I'm witnessing, but I'm with Keith Richards, so I can handle anything. But we couldn't talk. And the Stones' first albums had Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, and Motown songs on it. Mm-hmm. The first Stones, the first Beatles songs also. So that American soul music influence was an unbelievable connecting rod that I had with my hero, Keith Richards. We couldn't talk. But I tried. I stuck it out 2 nights in a row, but never got.
Because he was just so messed up.
So just a drooling, slobbering. And Keith, I love you. I worship their musical authority to this day, and I know he's in pretty good shape for being as old a man as he is. But you can imagine the letdown after letdown because of substance abuse, where there was no humanity. I wanted some humanity.
The thing about the drugs. And the drinking and everything else, but probably especially drugs. It takes down a lot of comedians and it takes down a lot of musicians. And nobody thinks you become a better roofer when you're high.
Exactly.
And nobody thinks you become a better plumber.
Well, I always say
high.
I don't want anybody high except my musicians and my comedians. but
the problem with drugs and comedians is a lot of people think, I'll lose my creative ability because it affects your brain. So nobody thinks you'll be better at boxing when you're high, and nobody thinks you'll be, again, a better plumber or electrician or framer.
Meaningful stuff.
When you're high. But people who write songs think, maybe I could write a better song if I was high. And so I think a lot of them fall prey to that, or at least they get a pass. Because if you pull over a long haul trucker and he's high, you go, hey man, get out of that truck. You can't do your job. Yep. But if you find a musician or comedian or a poet who's high, you think maybe that's how he does his job. Yeah.
And oftentimes it is. Oftentimes there's inspiration.
A lot of those guys wrote songs that we're aware of and that we love when they were pretty fucked up.
And I acknowledge it. And I was with Sam Kinison night after night after night, going upstairs at the Comedy Store, where it was like an outtake from Scarface again, and I go, you guys have got to be fucking kidding me. I mean, I suppose
didn't word get around that they didn't want to hang out with Ted Nugent?
Yes, eventually.
What a buzzkill! This guy's talking about bow hunting. Yes. I'm trying to get a freeze going.
But
here.
I took Sam and his brother. Was it Bill? On a Ford Bronco ride through a forest that I planted. I had these thousands of acres in Michigan with these giant forests that I planted, and I'm driving in my Bronco, and I'm driving over some of the forest I planted just to inspire Sam to go wild, to show him what a real wild man looks like. And I don't know if you notice, as a comedian lover as you are, as a comedian as you are, there was a moment in Sam Kinison's career where his screams got a little more intense. That was after my Bronco ride, because I was taking down 6-year-old 12-foot trees with my Bronco and really pushing the envelope of life and death just to inspire Sam and his brother. But we became good friends, and he did clean up, and he married the girl from my Little Miss Dangerous video. They got married, and they were on their way to Las Vegas that night when he was hit head on by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
So it's like Stevie Ray Vaughan got clean and died in the helicopter, and I got to jam with Stevie. And by all accounts, he was a super soulful gentleman, kind, conscientious, fun-loving loving guy. And when they finally get clean and sober, these terrible accidents take place. So it was heartbreaking.
All right. Well, I was thinking about getting clean and sober before, but now, since I don't want to die on the road. Yeah, the thing that was crazy about the Sam Kinison thing is a guy hit him and killed him, a young kid. Yeah. And the kid wasn't very remorseful about it at all. Like, I remember he was like, shit happens. It was a weird take. It's weird when somebody takes somebody's life and is sort of casual about it afterwards.
Soulless, I consider that a soulless condition.
It is kind of a soulless thing. Yeah. So you were there, you saw them all, you were and you caught them after the show, when they were partying a lot as well. And you going down and jamming with the Blues Brothers and that all-star band they had behind them would have been awesome.
Yes.
Here's a deep cut, since you brought up all these guys and all these famous guys and these session guys. Nicky Hopkins.
Yes, the piano for the Stones. Yes.
The piano for everybody.
Yes.
The Who.
Yes.
Graham Parker played with.
By the way, the Amboy Dukes opened up for the Who at the Southfield High School in '69 in the gymnasium.
So you guys opened up for the Who, one of my favorite bands, in '69.
Yeah. At a high school. I love those stories. And I got to meet the guys, and again, Keith was so out of it. And I ran into him off and on. He'd always have whiskey and all stuff, and they couldn't believe that I wanted to partake,
or didn't want to partake,
and I wouldn't partake, and I had to leave.
The thing about drums are so visceral that it's probably one of the few things you can do really fucked up.
Probably because it's violent. The best drumming is violent. It's like own way.
Like you can fight and you can fuck and you can play the drums.
Yeah,
those are things you can do.
Well, a lot of these guys.
Drunk.
Look, I jammed with Eddie Van Halen, and he was always ripped. And God bless him. I love him. Thank you for enriching our lives with your genius music and your adventurous guitar magic. I love you people. But it would have been nice to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And every time, here's an example, he was always completely fucked up and played like a miracle worker. So,
really?
And Jimmy was stoned most of the time, but he was going into unprecedented sonic territory that was just mesmerizing to everybody, especially super music lovers.
Are we talking Kimmel or?
We're certainly not talking Jimmy.
Hendrix.
That's a funny story unto itself. But Jimi Hendrix and all these other guys. So I'm a music fan before I'm a musician.
But I never really thought about the Ted Nugent conundrum.
Oh, it's a conundrum.
Being such a huge fan of these guys and having these guys being so fucked up all the time that after the concert you couldn't really sit down and talk to them. And I don't, I'll tell you, to the folks that aren't clean and sober or are, but I've experienced this by showing up to the party late, not metaphorically, like literally. Like what it is if you show up to a party at 8 and the party starts at 8 and everyone starts drinking at the same time, you're together at midnight. You're on about the same page. It's happened to me that I've had a show to do or something, and I showed up to the party after, and you get there at midnight, and everyone's fucked up, and you're not. And you look around and you go, I can't talk to these people.
Yes,
and so your entire career is basically the guy who showed up at the party at midnight after everyone had been drinking all night, and you're trying to communicate with them, and you can't.
As a genuine lover and admirer of their craft,
yes,
and you can't even discuss it, which I think art and musicianship and creativity, my heroes are welders. I want to learn how to do that welding. I want to make a bridge that never falls. Plumbers, carpenters, woodworkers. I get all these beautiful gifts in the mail every day of these people that make these beautiful woodworking crafts, these statues and this burned artwork that they send them to me and thank me for my music and thank me for standing up for their belief system. And in such awe of those talents. But the next step is to discuss the welding. I want to talk, and that's one person I can talk to about the welding because they're not fucked up. And the artists. But those that you can't talk to, you can't take it to the next desirable human level. I would like to have talked to Keith Richards about the Chuck Berry licks, which in that video, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, where Chuck and Keith had a big fight because Keith was playing Chuck's lick better than Chuck was. When I played bass for Chuck Berry, I knew his songs better than he did because he was so fucked by the industry that he had a real negative, jaded attitude towards everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think you can see that in that Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, although they did bring it all together to perfection during the performance with Steve Jordan on drums and the incredible musicians. But that's a missing link in my life. That's why I like to hang out with clean and sober people, because they're all music lovers and they're all nature lovers. And they're all marksmen, and they're all craftsmen, and they're all dedicated entrepreneurs. I'd like to talk about Calvin's Music Store. I'd like to talk about the sound system that Chris takes care of. I'd like to talk to Shemaine about her Faith and Freedom, Real Americans. I'd like to talk to my friends about their American dream. And if you're stoned, you can't take it to that next level, which I think emphasizes the spirit of excellence. And if you can't talk about it, you settle for something less than excellent.